Hello everyone, and happy Saturday. Today I'm going on another walk with my dog Tychus. Say hello. He loves his walks. So before I get into this, I wanted to let everybody know that I am very excited for this weekend because this weekend is Father's Day. And being a father, I'm always excited for the gifts that my kids get me. But I wanted to make today's walk more of a tribute to fathers. And I'm going to start out with an experience I had last Sunday. So last Sunday, I was walking to church and I found this crow on the side of the road. And this crow seemed to not be able to fly. My son had been walking ahead of me and he texted me a picture or a video of the crow, and it showed me that it wasn't flying and he was concerned that it was hurt. So I went up to this crow and there weren't any other crows around me, and I figured it was by itself, probably gotten injured. When I got closer to it, I realized it was a pretty young crow, so it must have just come out of the nest. And so I picked it up to see if there was anything wrong with it. Now, just a little bit of a warning here, don't go picking up wildlife if you see them. The only reason I did that is because I've had experience with handling wildlife. So I picked up this crow and instantly I could tell it was fine. Couldn't see any injuries or anything like that. But out of nowhere, all of these crows just come down on me. They just start squawking and flapping their wings and flying all over the place. I mean, they just came out of the woodwork. It was insane. And it was very interesting to me because when I had seen the crow on the ground, I couldn't see any other crows. It seemed like it was dead around where the crow was. But then the moment I picked it up, the moment that the crow was in trouble, supposedly, all of these crows came to its rescue. And so I realized that the crow wasn't alone, wasn't injured. So I went and put it in a safe spot and started walking away. And the crows were just in an uproar. A couple of them even followed me all the way to the church building, just screaming and cawing, and made sure I was getting far away from that young crow. And I realized those crows cared about that little crow, but they didn't want to get in its way. Basically, as this crow was learning to fly, they kept their distance and allowed this crow to be able to handle things on its own. But then once it was too much for him, they came to the rescue. And it made me think about parents and just how much they're there for us when we don't even notice it. So I'm going to give you a bit of a background in my life. So my father, when I was 9 years old, he got cancer and ended up passing away. And I love my father. He was such a great example to me and a hero in my life. And I'll always miss him. But not long after he passed away, we had moved from New York to here in Idaho. And not long after he'd passed away, my mother met and married another man. He was a friend of the family and quickly became part of the family. And I remember for the longest time, even though I cared about him, I saw him as a wonderful stepfather, I always felt hesitant to make him my dad because, in my opinion, that label had been retired. You know, it was like a jersey had been retired, and I still felt him as a father figure, but not as my dad. And it wasn't because of anything about him. He did his job as a father exactly the way he should, and a great friend too. But for me, it was just out of respect for my father who had passed that I kept that title, Dad, and didn't apply it to him. Luckily, it was kind of easy because his name's Brad, and so Dad and Brad kind of rhymed, so I just got in the habit of calling him Brad. And now, at this point in my life, I have known and lived with Brad, my stepfather, longer than I have with my actual dad, far longer. And I've been thinking about that a lot. My brother, he got remarried, and the woman he married has some kids from her previous marriage. Her husband also passed away. And I remember asking my brother if those kids call him by his name or if they call him Dad. And he pointed something important out to me. He said, well, you know, we never called Brad Dad. And it really got me thinking how, for me, that was fine, because Brad had become synonymous for father, in my opinion. But I never really thought about how it would be for him, and not showing that respect by sharing that title. And so now I've learned to start calling him Dad. I think that's appropriate and well-deserved because of all that he's done for me. He truly has been my dad, and I'm very appreciative for all that he's done. Now, my dad, my stepfather, when I was growing up, he had a job that kept him really busy. He worked out at the nuclear facility here, and he was always working. Whether he was at work or at home, he seemed to always be working. And I'm going to admit, and Dad, I don't know if I've ever talked to you much about this, but I always felt like he was a little distant, that he wasn't there in my life. But now, being a father myself, and especially after seeing that experience with the crows, I realized that even though I couldn't see him, even though I didn't think he was there in my life, really, he was there in the wings waiting in case I ever needed help. And I've looked back on my life, and every time I had a trial, every time there was something I couldn't handle, he was always there. He just seemed to instantly appear and help me out when I needed it. And I realized he gave me my space. He allowed me to become the man that I wanted to be, but he was always there caring for me and watching over me. And Dad, if you watch this video, I just want to say thank you so much for being there for me. I don't know how good of a son I was. I don't know how much I respected you. I probably didn't give you all the respect you deserved, but I really appreciate you being there for me, even if I didn't see it. And I want to share with everybody who's watching this video that in most cases you probably have a similar experience with your father. There are so many people I know who felt their fathers weren't really there for them, or their parents weren't really there for them, when in reality they were there. They were just giving you space, allowing you to become your own person, allowing you to experience your own trials. But they were watching just in case things became too hard. They'd swoop in and they'd help you out in case there was a difficult situation. And so, to me, that's been a huge thing. I don't know what my life would have been like if my stepfather hadn't been there for me. After my dad died, it was a really hard life for me. I don't think I realized how hard it was during the experience. Looking back, I can see just how hard it was not to have my dad there. And you know what? I grew up thinking a lot of times, and even having conversations with people, hinting to them that I grew up without a father. And I didn't. I had a dad there the whole time, watching over me and taking care of me. And I shudder to think what my life would have been like if I hadn't had a dad there, watching over me and taking care of me. I can think back in my life, and I've got a whole bunch of experiences where he stepped in to help me out. One time was when one of my pets died. I had a lot of pets growing up. I had dogs, I had lizards, I had parakeets, I had fishes, and I had this lizard that I liked a lot, and my brother had one too, and the cat somehow got involved and ended up injuring them. And I think my lizard's back got broke, but it was still alive, but it wasn't going to last very long. So my dad kindly offered to put it out of its misery, because I couldn't do it, but I knew it was suffering. And so he put it out of its misery the most humane way he possibly could think of. And I remember sitting on the trampoline, crying, really sad about it. And I'm going to be honest, if it had been my kid, and in fact I've had situations where my kids' pets have died, I should just console them and say, I'm sorry, your pet died, but it's time to move on. But my dad, he didn't do just that. Not only did he help me with the pet on putting it out of its misery, he decided to go to the scriptures and find every reference he could find about animals and God's love for animals and the salvation of animals, and sat down with me and talked with me about it and comforted me and made me feel okay about the fact that my pet had died. And I know it was just a small lizard. It wasn't a big, huge experience, but for me as a kid, it was. It was a very big experience, and it was a very hard experience. Another time I had lost my glasses at the sand dunes, and after everybody left, he was the only one there helping me look for them. And we finally found them together. And I realize now just how much he was there for me. So please take this weekend to share with your fathers just how much you care about them, because they do a whole lot more than you think they do. They're there for you, they're taking care of you. Even though they're at work all day, even though they may be busy, when they come home, they're thinking about you and they love you. And so this Father's Day, make sure to wish them a happy Father's Day. And more than any tie you could get at Walmart or any homemade card you can make them, I think the most important thing is letting them know that you love them. Thank you everybody for joining me on this special walk, and I hope you all have a great and wonderful Saturday. Take care.